Are we ready, T? Hello, my honeys, it's Emmie. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Emmie. I'm a nutritionist and hi, bear. We are gonna have kittens all over today. Let's get used to it. My name is Emmie. I'm a nutritionist. I'm the creator of the Slim on Starch program, where you work with me as well as your nutrition coach and your mindset coach so that you can lose weight on a starch-based, plant-based diet and gain food freedom, just like a little tiger here. You wanna have this meal with me? So today we are doing a mukbang. Important disclaimer about what I'm eating. First and foremost, if you want to see exactly how I made all of this, then I'm gonna put it in this vlog right here. So go ahead and watch this vlog to find out how I made all of my squash and all of my veggies. But what is so important to realize is that just because you see me eating this right now, this does not mean that this represents 1/3 of what I'm eating for the entire day. The issue is that we are accustomed to believe that we can only eat 3 meals a day. So when you see somebody eating something, you go, oh my gosh, that holds you over, like that fills you up. We could eat 72 times a day. We could eat 3 times a day. We could eat 2 times a day. We could eat 5 times a day. It doesn't matter how many times per day that we eat, but we've been taught that you eat breakfast, you eat lunch, you eat dinner. You can have a snack at 10 a.m., you can have a snack at 2:30 p.m., and if it is not any of those hours, then you cannot eat. And what has happened, we've driven ourselves crazy. Something that we teach you how to do inside of the Slim on Starch program is we say, drop from your head into your body. By looking at your watch, that is an external factor that's telling you when to eat, how much you can eat, what you can eat, versus using the internal clock, which is our hunger and our fullness cues. Our body has this incredible ability to tell us when it's time to eat, and that's when we start to feel hungry. But we've been taught, no, you don't listen to those. Your stomach's growling? Well, look at the clock. If it's 11 a.m., then you best wait 1 hour and just buckle down, because we don't listen to those hunger and those fullness cues. So what happens is that when people come to me and we work together, they go, Emmie, I have been forcefully intermittent fasting. I have been eating at the same times every day that my hunger and my fullness cues are just gone. And they're like, Emmie, I seriously do not have hunger and fullness cues. You do have hunger and fullness cues. They're just in hibernation right now because it's been such a long time since you've been able to honor them that they're asleep. They haven't had to be used. Use it or lose it. You haven't lost them, they're just asleep. So what we do through our work together is we change the food so that it is food that allows you to read your hunger and your fullness cues, and then we're gonna relearn your hunger and your fullness cues. We're gonna wake them up so that you can actually recognize them, and then once you recognize them, we're actually going to honor them. Recognizing your hunger and fullness cues is one thing, honoring them is another thing. Something that we talk about in the Slim on Starch program as well. I have not even started eating. I wasn't even gonna talk about this topic. I was gonna talk about something else, which I will get into. But there's a 3-stage process to this that we talk about in the Slim on Starch program when it comes to your hunger and your fullness cues. And the first one is, my hunger cues, they're dead. They are dead. My hunger and my fullness cues, they're on milk cartons around the US because nobody can find them. That's step 1. Step 2 is, okay, I'm aware of my hunger and my fullness cues, but I'm not honoring them. That's another thing that a lot of people come to me with, is they say that they eat until they are way past full. And they say, I even do it on potatoes. I even do it on oatmeal. I will just eat until my stomach hurts. It doesn't matter what the food is. Okay, what is going on back there? I gotta take a sip of water. Today's self-serve choice is ginger flavored. Very, very yum. There are 3 stages when it comes to hunger and fullness. Stage 1 is, I'm not aware of my hunger and fullness cues and I can't honor them because I'm not aware of them. Stage 2 is, I'm aware of my hunger and my fullness cues, but I'm not honoring them. I'm hungry, but I'm not eating, or I'm full, but I'm still eating. Stage 3 is, I'm aware of my hunger and fullness cues and I'm honoring them. My goal through my work with you, with my clients, is to get you to stage 3, where you are aware of your hunger and your fullness cues and you're honoring your hunger and your fullness cues. There can be in-betweens with these stages. It's not that you go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. You can start to dip in to each one of the stages and then pull back a bit. You can dip in and then you can pull back a bit. That is normal. It's important to remember that this is a process. And we are undoing a lot of years of numbing out your hunger and your fullness cues. So it's also really important to grant yourself grace in this process as well, and understand that it is a process. And it's an everyday learning process. You're not gonna get it on the first day. You're not gonna get it in the first week. That is okay. And understanding that you're not going to get it on the first day and in the first week is so important to making this long-lasting change and being kind to yourself. That's a lot of, I need to start eating. Okay, I'm gonna take a bite of my cauliflower. I love cauliflower. Let me say something about cauliflower. Justice for cauliflower, because there are so many foods everywhere that are cauliflower based that have the poor cauliflower has been mutilated, and cauliflower on its own, like this is plain steamed cauliflower, baller. 11 out of 10 recommend this. It is so good. I love it. And then we see cauliflower pizza crust, cauliflower gnocchi, cauliflower pretzels, cauliflower crackers, and I'm like, can I just have the cauliflower? So that is cold. That's cold. I'm gonna get up and put this in the microwave. So many people will say to me when we first get on the phone, they say, Emmie, all I want is to be able to eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full, and just move on with the rest of my life. Yet all I do is spend my time thinking about, am I hungry? Am I full? What should I have this? Should I have that? People say to me, they're like, I cannot, I'm working, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, what should I have? Like, am I hungry? How many minutes until lunch? Should I have a snack right now? And it's just absolute chaos. What I do through our work together is I make it so that we can free up that brain space, because you can, do we see this? They are such show off. So what we do through our work together is we free up that brain space so that you don't have to be thinking about, okay, I'm trying to do my work right now, but at the same time, there's the hunger and the fullness, and it's it's all this craziness. Guys, I'm sorry. Like, I could put them upstairs in my room. They are such show-offs. I could put them upstairs in my room right now so that they wouldn't be distracting in the background. If you're distracted by them, like, just pretend like this is a podcast, okay? Back to what I was saying. My goal through our work together is to make it so that you can fully listen to your body's cues. Your brain can talk to your body can talk to your brain. We have that mind-body connection so that your brain doesn't have to call all the shots. Drop from your head into your body. Our bodies are so smart. They are so smart. But what we do is our brain says, body, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna call the shots. These are the times that we're gonna eat. We're gonna eat this many calories, and our body just says, okay, I guess you don't have to listen to me. So then the body stops communicating with the brain. So we wanna open back up this connection so that the beautiful mechanism of hunger and fullness can do exactly what it was intended to do. So let's talk about that a little bit. After I take a bite of my zucchini. I haven't had zucchini in a minute. That's another thing. Zucchini noodles. I just want zucchini. You don't have to make it into noodles. You don't have to do anything crazy. I just want some zucchini. Ooh, delicata squash. It's been a minute. Good one. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about hunger and fullness and how I can convince you that you can listen to your hunger and your fullness cues. You're gonna say to me, Emmie, I can't listen to my hunger and fullness cues. If I ate every time I was hungry, every time I eat when I'm hungry, I just eat. I mean, if I listen to my hunger and fullness cues and I don't listen to a calorie count, then I'm gonna blow up. I'm gonna get so fat. I'm never gonna lose weight. The only way I know how to lose weight, is when I count calories. How can I do this without counting calories? Let me tell you exactly how this works. Nature did not design us to be overweight. And if we look back to all of our ancestors, they weren't overweight. Why weren't they overweight? Well, they didn't have any processed foods. They were listening to their hunger and fullness. They weren't doing intermittent fasting. They weren't counting calories. They weren't looking at the clock and saying, well, I can only eat now. I can only eat now. They were eating when they were hungry. They were stopping when they were full. So why can't we do the same? Well, we can do the same. However, with most people, listening to your hunger and fullness is being done with an unnatural diet. So if we go back to our ancestors, they were listening to their hunger and fullness and they were eating a natural diet. The standard American diet, people listen to their hunger and fullness, but they're eating an unnatural diet and then they're overweight. Natural diet, natural hunger and fullness cues, natural weight. Unnatural diet, natural hunger and fullness cues, unnatural weight. You see, it's the food that's the issue because different food is gonna affect our hunger and our fullness cues differently. How? Well, the amount of calories that a food has determines how much dopamine you release when you eat that food. What is dopamine? Dopamine is the motivation chemical. When we release dopamine, we are motivated to do whatever action we're doing. So when we have sex, for example, we release a ton of dopamine. That would motivate us to continue to engage in that act. It's a survival chemical, really. So when we do things that increase the likelihood of our survival, we release dopamine and it makes us feel good. This is why sex is so enjoyable, because we're releasing a lot of dopamine. Why are we releasing a lot of dopamine? Because dopamine is going to motivate us to do whatever action we're doing so that we stay alive. Get it? Dopamine motivates us to do things that would make us stay alive. Well, what's something that makes us stay alive? Eating. Eating is something that makes us stay alive, right? So nature said, okay, what do I need to do here? How can I get it so that the humans like to eat? Oh, I have an idea. When they eat, they release dopamine. This is what Mother Nature said. Got it. When humans eat, they're gonna release dopamine. Dopamine is gonna motivate them to do something. When things are low in calories, they'll release some dopamine. When things are high in calories, they'll release a lot of dopamine. Because the more calories something has, the more likely that the human is going to survive, right? No big deal back in the day because there weren't things that were crazy high in calories. I'm gonna try out this squash, which I've never had before. Tastes pretty squashy. So let's go back to the whole caveman thing. The caveman, eating all of his natural foods, eats something like corn, for example. Corn is maybe one of the higher calorie things that he can get his hands on. For the average Joe, corn is one of the lowest things in calories that he'll get his hands on. But back in the day, corn or potatoes, those were the things that were a little bit higher in calories. Everything else was like fruit and lettuce, which doesn't have any calories in it. It does, but you know what I mean. So when the average, and there goes the cauliflower. So when the average Joe ate something like potatoes that had more calories in it, he would release a pretty good amount of dopamine. He'd be like, all right, yeah, this is pretty good, right? He would eat the potatoes, he would eat the vegetables, he would eat the fruit, and he was good to go. This was caveman Joe. Now let's look at 2020 Joe. Potatoes, corn to 2020 Joe, that's low in calories compared to everything else in our modern environment. Everything else in our modern environment is gonna be packed with calories. We look at something like oil, for example, which is 4,000 calories per pound, and something like processed sugar is 1,600 calories per pound. You know, muffins, that's getting into 1,600 calories per pound. This stuff has so many calories in it that when 2020 Joe eats these foods, he's gonna release so much dopamine that he's gonna eat more and more and more and more. And he's gonna say, oh, I'm hungry for this stuff, because that dopamine is just going wild. So of course, you can't listen to your hunger and your fullness cues if you're eating unnatural foods. So what's the answer here is to change the food that you're eating. When you change the food that you're eating, the amount of dopamine that you release is gonna be way lower. For something like potatoes that has 300, 400 calories per pound, think about how much dopamine that releases versus something like oil, which is 4,000 calories per pound. That is gonna release so much dopamine, and then you're just gonna eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. But if we eat foods that are lower in calories, we're gonna release less dopamine, which means, yeah, you can listen to your hunger and your fullness cues because your dopamine is not going buck wild. Makes sense, right? Another thing when it comes to hunger and fullness is people will ask me when we start working together, they'll say, how long do you think, Emmie? Like, how long? Take out your crystal ball, Emmie. How long will it be until I trust my hunger and fullness? How long is it going to take to reawaken these? I've been dieting for 20, 30, 40 years. You know, a lot of my clients are in their 50s, their 60s. I have clients in their 70s. And they're like, how long? I've been dieting since I was 11 years old. You know, is it even possible? And if so, how long is this going to take? How long it takes to reawaken your hunger and your fullness cues and to be able to honor them is a direct result of how open you are to surrendering to this process. Dive in. Allow yourself to reawaken your hunger and your fullness cues. I say to my clients, I go, listen, fully dive in, fully surrender. Because if you don't start today, what makes you think that you're gonna start tomorrow? And if there's any time to do this, it's when you have me, your nutrition coach, your mindset coach. This is a safe place to do this. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that what you get out of something is a direct result of what you put into it. And so if you believe, I'm going to do this, I'm going to relearn my hunger and fullness cues, I'm doing this, it's happening, it will happen. Another thing that our head mindset coach, Kiki, and I feel talk about this phenomenon a lot, or a mindset rather, which is acting as if. And what that means is acting as if you already are the person that you want to be. Because listen, when you become the person you want to be, wherever I go, there I am. So I want you to act as if you are the person that you will be when you lose weight, when you relearn your hunger and your fullness cues. How does this relate to hunger and fullness cues? Well, if you say, you know, I'm never gonna relearn them, like I'm gonna join this program, I'm gonna work with Emmie, I'm gonna try to really relearn my hunger and fullness cues, but like, never gonna happen. Yeah, you're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So what you have to do is truly believe that you can relearn your hunger and your fullness cues, and then start to pretend like you can. Act as if. Even if you cannot read them in the slightest, believe that you are working toward this. And instead of having these present tense statements that are absolutes, I can't read my hunger and my fullness cues, replace that with, I am in the process of relearning my hunger and fullness cues. This delicata squash is fire. No matter what it is that you want to do, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to relearn your hunger and your fullness cues, whether you want to climb Mount Everest, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are right. It all comes down to your mindset. Mindset is everything. This is why I have a mindset, like when you work with me, you work with a nutrition coach who's a registered dietitian, and you work with a mindset coach. Because this is way more than just the food. The food is just the tip of the iceberg. The food is just a manifestation of something that's not right in your life, right? It's not what we're eating, it's what's eating us. The food, it never has to do with the food. What's on your plate, it has absolutely nothing to do with your relationship with food. The sun is starting to set, and it's like 4 p.m. A lot of people ask me, they'll say, Emmie, I will eat until I'm stuffed and I'm so full and I still keep eating and my stomach hurts and I swear I'm not gonna do it, and then I do it and I can't stop, and they're like, what is wrong with me? I'm out of control. I cannot stop overeating. The reason why you're overeating is probably because you're restricting or you're hungry. I mean, there's so many reasons for overeating, but with most of the people that I work with, the overeating is just a symptom of restriction, okay? I need you to get this through your skull, honeys. Binge eating is a symptom of restriction. When you restrict, you always end up overeating. And then you overeat and you feel guilty, and then you start restricting again. And then you get really hungry, and then you binge eat. And then you feel guilty, and then you restrict. And then you get really hungry, and the cycle goes on and on and on. So, to get you to stop binge eating, I'm not even gonna focus on the binge eating. We need to remove the restriction. How do we do that? We get you eating a slim on starch diet, a whole foods plant-based diet, and we relearn your hunger and your fullness cues, and we encourage you to eat in abundance and listen to those hunger and fullness cues. I'm not gonna lie, this is scary. It's scary for people to let go of calorie counting, restriction, portion control, whatever it is, because they think every time that I don't do this, I binge eat. But that's because every time you aren't binge eating, you're restricting. So we need not think that you're a binge eater, label you as a binge eater, and focus on the binge eating. We need to focus on freeing up the restriction so that you don't have that symptom of binge eating anymore. The sun is setting. I need to finish filming this video. People always also ask me, I don't know what hunger feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be full. I want to know what that feels like. Well, kids, let's think of kids, for example. If you asked like a 4-year-old, what does it feel like to be hungry? They'd be like, if you ask a 4-year-old, are you hungry? They'd be able to say yes or no. But if you ask them to describe that feeling, they'd be like, I don't know. I just know when I am, and I know when I'm not. And so I think that we put so much focus on trying to define what it feels like, when the reality is that you know or you don't. Think about like when you need to pee, for example. What does it feel like when you need to pee? Like, I don't know. I just know that I do. I just know when I need to pee. The results are in. This new squash that I tried, I wouldn't spend my money on it again. The best squash is the delicata of what I have on my plate. One of my clients, Danielle, sent me squash, and I'm so excited to try it. I'll do a mukbang with it, or like show it in a video. I'm gonna be so sad when squash season is over. The delicata squash season is very short. And there are a lot of bad delicacies. Here's the thing. When it comes to squash, there's a lot of bad squash out there. And it gives squash a bad name because when you get a good one, you got a good one, honey. But when you don't have a good one, you don't have a good one, honey. Yeah, so I don't really recommend squash to other people because I'm like the squash pro. Weird brag, but I am. So I know how to pick out a good squash, but I would not expect anybody else to. And when you get a bad squash, it's a bad squash. Let's do some home updates. So I have my office upstairs. Attached to my office, I put a filming room there, like when I was designing the house. And I originally was gonna have it be my filming room, but now I kind of want to make it my gym because I live in Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts, if you don't know, and it's like freezing here. And I have a treadmill. Yes, so I live in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is freezing, and I have my treadmill down in the basement, and the heat, I don't have any heat in the basement. So I'm wondering, I honestly like think I'm gonna do it, and today is Black Friday, so I think I might buy an elliptical today on a Black Friday sale and make a gym upstairs because I have my treadmill. I would love to have an elliptical too so that I, could do something besides running, take some pressure off my knees. So I don't know, I might turn it into a gym. Back to hunger and fullness. Another thing is a lot of times, so when we eat, we release dopamine, as we've talked about. Dopamine is that motivation chemical, and it feels really good. When we release a lot of dopamine, things just feel good. So a lot of the times people will eat and they'll eat and they'll eat and they'll eat and they'll eat past the point of fullness because of that dopamine hit. So their body is saying stop, but their brain is saying keep going, keep going. And that's why there's this huge internal battle. And on top of that, we have this internal audience. This is, psychology talk. We have this internal audience, and this internal audience judges our actions. And that action of overeating has a lot of shame associated with it because it displeases our internal audience. And so our internal audience says, man, you can't get a hold on yourself. But at the same time, the dopamine in our brain is going crazy. And then on top of that, our stomach hurts. It's just this huge mess. And so the answer to it is to eat a whole foods plant-based diet in abundance, let go of restriction, and just allow yourself to surrender to this process. Because at the end of the day, the only way that you're gonna find out if you can live this life while truly listening to your hunger and your fullness cues is to actually do it. And like we talked about earlier, act as if. Pretend as if you fully trust your hunger and your fullness cues, and act as if that's already the case, and act like somebody who does. Think about somebody who's totally in tune with their hunger and fullness cues, whether you watch them on YouTube, and do what they do. Pretend that you are them. Should I turn on the light? Why don't I turn on the light? Okay, I'm gonna turn on the light, and you guys tell me if you like it with the light on or if you like it grainy. Because it's grainy. Be honest with me about this lighting. Be honest, be brutally honest. Do we hate it? Do we love it? Talking about pumpkin. When I lived in Australia, the pumpkin there was so sweet. There was Kent pumpkin, there was Japanese pumpkin, but the Japanese pumpkin was 10 out of 10. And people say, oh, Emmie, kabocha and Japanese pumpkin is the same. It's not. When it comes to like squash and pumpkin, there are two ways that it can go. The texture can be like squishy, and like kind of stringy, or the texture can be really floury and starchy. I love when it's like floury and starchy. Those are my favorite, like kabocha squash, when it's like floury and starchy. In Australia, it was squishy, but it was so sweet. The pumpkin was just so sweet. It was delicious. In the US, what will happen is every once in a while you get a really good kabocha squash, which is a pumpkin, and it is floury and it's just the most delicious thing. But you don't get the sweetness from the pumpkin in Australia. The worst is what happens a lot of the time, which is why I never recommend squash to people, because most of the time it comes out like this. It's like watery and like tasteless and just terrible. So I have the biggest love-hate relationship with squash. This kind of squash is like not really that good. It's my first time trying it. Do you like these mukbangs? Should I do more of them? Also, do you mind this lighting? Whoa. I just had the craziest thing happen. When I took a bite of that, like sent me back to childhood. I took a bite of it and the taste and the texture tasted exactly like a French toast stick. Those are the days, huh? I'm gonna be sad when delicata squash season is over. This is a really good one. If they're golden, like I don't even wanna give squash tips because like, why did that saying just come out of my head? I don't even wanna give squash tips. But seriously, I don't even wanna give squash tips because I don't want them to get misinterpreted and then you hate me when you get a bad squash, because bad squashes are out there, let me tell you. Believe you me. All right, my honeys, one bite left. I love you, I love you, I love you. If you like this video, if you want more of these, let me know in the comments. Leave ginger if you're still watching, and I'll see you in my next video.